You have a spidey sense on that one?
It's always tingling. I am always... No, I'm not. Don't say that. It's always tingling.
We're talking about Nylander, that situation, right? Oh, okay.
It's always tingling.
Just want to make sure. Elliotte, I want you to start the podcast in one very specific way to capture this moment perfectly.
Okay, what's that?
I want you to say this along with me. Draw me like one of your French girls. Draw me
Jeff,
like
it's
one
New
of your
Year's
French
Day.
girls.
What are you doing? I'm not doing that.
You're lounging on Dom's bed in the hotel here in Seattle, and all I can see is Rose from Titanic as you lounge on his
Man,
bed.
you're weird. If you're looking at me and you're seeing...
You don't even have socks on. Poor Dom's got to sleep in this
Okay,
tonight.
first of all, we'll paint this picture in a second. But I just want to say, if you're looking at me and you're thinking of Kate Winslet, you've got even more problems than I thought you
have
did.
the same pose. It's so hilarious.
So here's the thing. I do not. I'm lying on my back with my leg up.
You were a second ago.
So here's the thing. We're doing this. We're in Seattle. We're here for the Winter Classic. Looking forward to it here on Monday afternoon. Great weather. They've really lucked out with the weather here.
Yep.
And we're in Dom's room, producer Dom, doing the podcast. And Dom has 2 double beds in his room.
Yeah, you need that.
And you're always a double bed guy?
No.
Yeah, I was going to say.
No.
The only thing I ever ask from a room is, can I get a king bed? But... So he's got one bed, the other bed, which he's clearly slept in, and this one, which is
pristine.
Made. Yeah,
and
pristine.
You're ironing with your butt right now.
So I came and lied on his bed. Like, what's the big deal? He's not sleeping in this bed. Am I wrong here, people? It's like a couple weeks ago. Is this weird? BX is smelling his socks. Is this weird that I'm lying on the unused bed? And there's one Sportsnet personality who shall not go... by name, because I don't like to slander people without them being here to defend themselves. But he always asks for 2 double beds because he wants to throw his luggage
on one. You've mentioned
on
that
one.
before.
Yes. So it's not Dom, as far as I know.
Might be.
But Dom says, well, why are you lying on my bed like that? I said, you're not using this bed. He goes, well, I don't know if I'm going to get that other bed made up, so I might want to sleep on that one.
Oh.
And I was like, what?
Kitten. Oh, little kitten isn't going to get his bed made.
Okay, that is... Am I wrong or is that weird? You can't sleep in the same bed 2 nights in a row?
All right, how about this? Is this
one
wrong?
rule in hotels, if you guys all don't know this, is don't drink out of the glasses. But I have never heard that you can't sleep in the same bed 2 nights in a row if it's not made up.
What about the protocol of lying in another man's bed without shoes or socks on?
If they were,
that's what you're doing to Dom right now, and now you're gonna expect him to sleep in that.
No, I don't. He's gonna sleep in the other bed. Like, if this was his bed, it would be absolutely a foul.
Oh, all right.
It's what hockey people call a gross misconduct.
Oh, gross!
Because
that's
I will
fair.
say this: there's nobody who hates feet more than I do. I think feet are the most disgusting body part.
You wish you could be outside of the room when you take your socks off?
Even I can't even stand my feet. But like, this is not the bed he's sleeping in, so it's not that bad. I don't understand.
It's not your decision.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm trying to defend myself as much as I can here.
All right, well, it's a pretty flimsy defense, Your Honor. But
what a waste of the start of a podcast.
Well, come to 32 Thoughts, the podcast in Seattle, in Dom's room. We've established that. Presented
Happy
as
New Year.
always by GMC Sierra.
Happy New Year to all the great listeners of our podcast.
Yes, absolutely. As Elliotte mentioned, we are in Seattle. You are going to hear, we did a number of interviews today. So you're going to hear a collage of pretty much all of them, whether it's Ron Francis, GM of the Seattle Kraken, Kelly McCrimmon, GM of the Vegas Golden Knights, Bruce Cassidy, head coach of the Vegas Golden Knights, or Jack Eichel, Stars center for the Vegas Golden Knights. You will hear from all of them over the course of this podcast. And we'll get to the Winter Classic here in a sec. Yes, Elliotte.
Oh, I was going to ask you about this morning.
This morning was really good. Ron Francis was really happy to do this interview today.
He was?
Yeah.
Good.
He was in a great mood.
Good.
Because you weren't there.
Yes, I walked right into that.
Elliotte was
so I
in
worked
transit.
Late.
Elliotte was
I
doing
worked
hockey
late
night,
on Saturday night, and I didn't realize that the Toronto to Seattle route does not have a direct. in the morning. So, I flew Toronto, Chicago, Seattle. And when people heard I was going through Chicago,
That
they
could
were
be
like,
danger.
Are you nuts?
Yeah.
Are you insane? You never take a connection through O'Hare unless you have 9 hours to find your way through it.
Yeah.
And I only had about 45 minutes, but I was fortunate. Someone up there likes me. Smooth connection.
Nice.
Smooth trip. And I didn't get a chance to see, like, the one thing the one person I really wanted to meet today, Marshawn Lynch.
He was there.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't make it to the field this morning to see him on time. I love Marshawn Lynch. I think he's one of the funniest guys around. I love that he's a minority partner of the Kraken. I think it's a great thing to have him part of the team. I've heard that, when he comes in and he does team nights, like they have one of those promotions where they give an award to a fan during a commercial break. When he does it, he's great at it. Very, very willing to do things. I really wanted to get a chance to speak to him today, but unfortunately I didn't get here early enough to do so.
Jeff, one of the things that happens when you're here is you think about, okay, here we are at the 2024 Winter Classic. What are they thinking about for 2025? And number one, there's no Heritage Classic next year. There was a Heritage Classic this year. They generally skip on, off, so there's no Heritage Classic in Canada next year. But 2025, they were saying to me, okay, I was asking, and they're like, who do you think we'd want in the 2025 Winter Classic? That's on you to figure out. And you know who jumped out at me? Connor Bedard, Chicago Blackhawks. So I don't know if it's going to be in Chicago or it's going to be with Chicago. But I would not be surprised at all. As a matter of fact, I would bet that the Chicago Blackhawks and Connor Bedard will somehow be involved in the 2025 event.
You're going to hear from Ron Francis, Kelly McCrimmon, Jack Eichel, Bruce Cassidy, all still to come. Meanwhile, the headline story outside of the Winter Classic today around the NHL, Elliotte, Steve Staios is now the general manager of the Ottawa Senators, also the president of hockey operations. Dave Poulin is now the senior VP of hockey operations, and Ryan Bowness is an associate general manager. There's a lot of questions that fall out of this, but your initial thoughts on the news today?
I was a little bit surprised because if you'd heard everything coming out of the Senators, it was that Mike Andlauer, the owner, liked the Montreal setup, the Jeff Gorton, Kent Hughes setup, and that Ottawa would follow the same model. Mm-hmm. And it's not exactly what happened. So I was a little bit surprised, and also with the timing. I have several different reactions. First of all, I'm going to give credit to Ron McLean, because Ron McLean said to me, he predicted right away when the GM change happened.
It's going to be Staios?
He predicted it was going to be Staios. And I think there were some other people around the league did. One other listener to this podcast said it too, that he thought it was going to be Staios. And those people were right. I had heard, and I think I'd mentioned on the pod and written, that there was definitely a feeling that Ryan Bowness was growing into a bigger role. Mm-hmm. That given the opportunity under the "you plan, God laughs" rule of there was supposed to be no change, and then there was a change, they were really impressed with what he brought to the table. And I think there's a few people out there who really believe that long term Ryan Bowness, if he's not going to be the general manager of the Ottawa Senators, he's going to be a general manager in the not too distant future. And I think the Senators would prefer it would be with them.
Right.
So I'm not surprised that he got promoted. My initial reaction to it was, why now? Like, they didn't do a big search.
Yep.
Obviously there's a lot of people in the sport who like Dave Poulin. They were definitely looking for a more experienced person. There's no question about that. What I'm kind of wondering is, does this mean they have some other things they're thinking about?
Like coaches?
I'm thinking coaches, trades, whatever it might be. like that's the thing that when I saw that today and I was still on the plane and I had a chance to process it, that's what I thought. Did they have, because they didn't have to do this today. They could have interviewed more people and then still come back to Dave Poulin.
Yep.
What it says to me is they have some things that they're considering and they wanted the people in place to do it.
So what happens in January around the NHL? Trade talk starts to pick up. Teams know where they're at, where they're heading, what they need to prep for. And that's probably, because I was like, I'm thinking to myself, okay, so why now?
Yeah.
And my thought is, this is now when teams have pretty much made decisions on where there are some teams that are still maybe, but most teams by now, they know what's under the hood.
Yep.
And they're going to start to act accordingly.
Yep.
That's why I thought it was made now.
It makes sense to me. They, like I said, they didn't have to do this now. So the fact that they did, they wanted some certainty. They wanted to move along the process. I have to say this. There's been a lot of talk about John Gruden, the coach of the American Hockey League Marlies team.
Yep.
As I understand it, I don't think Ottawa is expecting Toronto to give them permission in season. Now, I confess, I asked around about this about a week or so ago, so things can always change. But the initial reaction I was getting was, this isn't going to happen during the season. And it wasn't only the case with Gruden. I think there were other people that Ottawa wanted to talk to that they were told not in season, or they knew it wasn't going to be allowed to happen in season.
People will point to the Rangers situation with Chris Knobloch and the American Hockey League team and will say, well, Knobloch was allowed to go. But I would maintain in that situation, that's early in the season. I mean, you're getting deep into the season here now.
I think that's actually different.
It is a different scenario because, listen, Peter Laviolette's first year head coach.
He was not going to be the coach of the Rangers.
All I'm saying is the situations are not the same.
Yeah.
That's why you can throw the Rangers example out, but that will come up.
And yes, and I think with Ottawa, I don't think they're looking to make massive moves. Like I still think that but I will say this: Ottawa has kind of surprised us a little bit here this year. That used to be a pretty leaky organization, and Andlauer and Staios are certainly trying harder to get their raps about it. But like this one, again, it kind of happened at a time I don't think a lot of people were expecting. So I think the message we're getting under like the Andlauer Staios ticket is expect the unexpected.
Here's what I wonder. I wonder if
they're very much in charge and expect the unexpected.
I agree with you on the first one. I'm not so sure about the second one. We'll see. But what I look at on Sunday was this is the cement hardening. This is the concrete hardening around Staios and Andlauer with the firm grip on the steering wheel of the Ottawa Senators. One of the only things left here now, as you mentioned, is the coaching situation.
Yeah.
But as far as the team being run, that's done. The idea that, oh, you know what, we're going to make our decisions at the end of the year. There's going to be more of a thorough search, and we all know what happened with Pierre Dorian and everything that's gone on. To me, Sunday was a cementing of these two guys have their hands on the wheel. That's it. I don't know about I'm not so sure about the unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing that I'm not sure. Like, I don't think there's going to be a massive change of direction for the Ottawa Senators. I think they've identified their core and they know who their team is and where they're heading, and they're going to build and complement that core.
I don't, in theory, I don't disagree with you. Here's where I do disagree with you. At the beginning of the year, what did we think? Dorian Smith all season.
Yep.
Now, I heard when that penalty was coming down for the draft pick, I did hear look out.
Yep.
That could lead to a change. With DJ, everything was, we're going to hang on until they just decide we can't hang on anymore. And, with the GM search, even though some people predicted it properly from the beginning, like Ron, I think a lot of us were expecting it wasn't going to happen now. So when I say you can expect the unexpected, I think that they are very good at saying this is what we're planning, but if things change, we're going to adapt
for sure.
fast.
For sure.
So that says to me that someone's going to hear this and say you're calling them liars. I'm not calling them liars. I think that they set an expectation and a path, and they almost lure us to sleep. And then, whoa, the path changes. I mean, you just have to be prepared. Now, I agree with you. I think they're looking at this like this is our team for a long time.
Yep.
And whoever they hire as their coach, they're going to be hopeful that this is their coach for a long time. And, you mentioned, and we've talked about this, identifying the core. Like, I think they're identified their core too. And I think it's at that age group, it's Tkachuk, it's Stützle, it's Batherson, it's Norris,
Sanderson,
it's Chychrun, and it's Shabbat, who I do think they consider as part of their core. But the only thing is, just as someone looking at it from outside, I think we shouldn't be surprised anymore if Ottawa calls audibles. Like, I don't think they're looking to make big changes to their core. I think they're looking to do some things around it and bolster it. However, I think what we've learned right now is maybe they might proclaim one thing, but it doesn't mean it's going to go that way.
Where's Shane Pinto in all this?
Well, he's back there now. We talked about a couple weeks ago about how he'd moved back into the city. Jacques Martin said on Sunday he now has a stall.
Yep.
I think his first game back is January 21st against Philly, and I think he's allowed to practice 10 days beforehand. But now he's allowed to kind of be around. And I would expect that he's going to sign his qualifying offer this year, prorated. However, I have heard, unconfirmed by team and agent, that they have, since the GM change, they have talked about a longer term deal.
So he would be in that core picture.
Core picture. He is definitely part of the core. I forgot to name him because I had heard some rumors about Pinto potentially being out there, that the team wanted to move on.
Yeah.
And I was told in several places in no uncertain terms that they were planning to keep him, and they considered him a big part of the group. Now, Jeff, you make a really good point that maybe this is just a new group getting in, and they're trying to say, okay, this is our group, and eventually there won't be that many changes. I'm just saying, as someone who covers the league, Ottawa's giving a definite vibe of expect the unexpected.
Don't be, wait for the head fake.
Wait for the head fake.
Here comes the head fake.
Larry Bird, peak night. Nobody had better head fakes than Larry Bird.
Okay, we've talked a lot about goaltenders all season.
Yeah.
Let's do it again. Goalies on waivers: Ilya Samsonov and Eric Comrie, Toronto and Buffalo.
Okay, so I actually want to start, if you don't mind. Can we just mention Winnipeg for a second? I'm going to tie all this in.
Okay.
So Winnipeg had a huge weekend. As we record this podcast on New Year's Eve, they are third in the league in points percentage behind the Rangers and Boston. And they just played Minnesota back-to-back and won both games. And Hellebuck won one, and Brassard won the other. And but I will say this: I had a long talk. Like, I was doing a lot of GM calls on Saturday about where are we going goalie-wise. And I had a long talk with a couple guys about Hellebuck. And I know that there were a lot of people who were skeptical of that deal, and we're in year 1 of 7. We'll see where it goes. But you know what? I had a really interesting conversation with one GM who compared goalies to NFL quarterbacks. Raise your hand if you're a fantasy football champion.
Oh, Jesus. Elliotte and Dom. Great.
You should play fantasy football, Jeff. It takes 10 years off your life.
I need more distractions in my life. Yeah. My hair's not gray enough.
Gives you heart attacks. Anyway, he was comparing it to football quarterbacks.
Okay.
And he's like, there's 8 studs. There's Lamar Jackson, and there's Tua, although he's struggling right now, and there's Justin Herbert, and there's a couple of really good quarterbacks, and then there's like a bunch of quarterbacks you just plug in, and you don't know if they're going to be good anywhere. And like he mentioned Joe Flacco, and for those of you who play football, fantasy football, or a football fan, Joe Flacco wins Super Bowl with Baltimore. People debate how good he really is. Like there's this big online debate: is Joe Flacco really elite? He leaves the Ravens. He goes to a couple teams. It doesn't go very well, and now he shows up in Cleveland, and he looks better than he ever has. And one GM said to me, he says, "I'm watching Joe Flacco and I'm following his career path." He goes, "It's like a goalie in the NHL. Like sometimes you have no idea what to expect. Why is this guy good with this team? And why is this guy not good with this other team?" Like he said, perfect example, Cam Talbot.
Should be a perfect answer for this. All teams play differently. Like whenever we talk with Kevin Woodley, what does he always say?
Yeah.
Not all goaltenders fit with every single team.
100%.
And performance cannot be replicated because all teams are different.
But what his point was with Hellebuck and Winnipeg is that, and he says in his organization, he's like one of those teams that always debate, do you really need a goalie? Do you really need a goalie? Do you really need to have a goalie? And he said watching Hellebuck this year, and the Jets and Hellebuck weren't sure that was going to work.
Yeah.
And it happened in October or September. He said, it is a reminder, if you have one of those 8 quarterbacks, if you have one of those 8 goalies, you hang on to them for as long as you can.
Yeah. I do find that, because I find it interesting because, like you, I've heard the comparison before. NHL goaltenders are like NFL quarterbacks.
Yeah.
That's how valuable they are. And I think and it certainly drives me goofy sometimes when I think about it, why aren't they the highest paid players in the NHL then? Like, what was the conversation we had last podcast? Who's the MVP? The league minimum salary backup.
Yeah.
Like, when you consider how important goaltenders are to your team, why are they not the highest paid?
Well, I think it's because, A, there aren't that many of them. And, I think Price's injuries scared some teams off.
I agree with that.
Like, generally, I think if you take a look at these goalies, like, Lundqvist was signed when he was 31 years old, and he made 6.5 years of that deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he did, and there were a lot of people saying that's crazy. I think goalies have a later prime, but the goalie market right now, it's crazy, Jeff. Like, so as you said, there's 2 guys on waivers on Sunday. I don't think anyone's claiming Samsonov at $3 million. I think he's going to the American Hockey League. He's not going to play next week. Again,
what are they going to do with him then?
He's gonna practice,
Yeah.
and I think they're going to work with him off the ice. I heard a really interesting story about Samsonov, and someone said to me that one of the concerns they really had about him right now is apparently at times he was practicing very well, and it wasn't obviously translating into games. And I think teams, they get into, that's when teams are really stuck. Like, what do we do here? Because you can't just say, oh, the guy's going to have a good practice and he'll feel better. Mm-hmm. Apparently that was happening. He was having really good practices and it wasn't working. So they're going to just work with, like, one thing that really amazed me is how both Kelly and Kevin were adamant that playing in the American Hockey League is not going to help this. So they're going to work on his mental game. They're going to work with him. They're going to work on his practicing, and they'll see where they are in a week. And the one thing I heard trade-wise was I heard they did not like what was being offered to them. I heard that it wasn't, like, someone was saying to me, like, they were saying, okay, can we throw like a 6th rounder out and get someone? And they didn't even like teams apparently were saying, no, we want a prospect or something. So that's how crazy the market is. Like,
is that the market, or is that specifically Toronto?
Well, no, because like Carolina would have made a deal for a goalie if they could have.
Yeah,
New Jersey would probably have made a deal for a goalie if Edmonton would have. It's like like I just think like these like even the middling goalies are the prices are crazy. These teams are so. The tough thing with Comrie is I think Comrie is a better goalie than he's shown. The salary is the killer at 1.8.
1.8.
Nobody's really got, but someone was saying to me that they think with like Anaheim for the trade for Gibson and the retention,
That's huge.
it's enormous.
That's huge. Elliotte, I know you always roll your eyeballs when I say first rounder, but retention will get you a first rounder.
No,
in
no,
the league.
I'm not rolling my.
I really believe that.
I'm not rolling my eyeballs at that. And if I was before, I'm not anymore. Like I do think if you want Anaheim to retain,
It's going to cost a lot.
it's going to cost. Now it's still, but I mean, who can take that contract all by itself?
They can't, but you're going to attach something to it.
And I think the same thing with Jake Allen. Like he's at what 3.85 next year. I think that's another one. I don't think the price for Allen is obviously as high as it is for Gibson. It's interesting though. Like I've had teams say to me that there's what Montreal has asked for and what people think they're really willing to do. And the question is, when do you move them to what they're really willing to do? I'll tell you this. One goalie whose name I heard a little bit was Kakinen from San Jose.
Expiring deal.
Expiring deal. And if you look at the underlying numbers, money puck numbers, very good goal save above expected. And the team's underlying numbers that we don't see do contribute to that. I think there's a few teams that kind of thought about him. Number one, what's the price?
Yep.
Number two, the only negative I heard was that you just don't know. He's never really had to do it before. Said he's having a great year. People think he's good, but it's like that Flacco thing they kind of talked about.
Yeah.
And my point was like, my God, he can't be a system goalie because San Jose is giving up a lot of goals, so you have to like him. But I just think that I know there's some teams out there where a little bit, what price am I going to have to pay for a guy I haven't seen yet? But teams like him, they do.
Well, those conversations start to heat up now. And we'll see what happens with the Maple Leafs and the Buffalo
And I mention
Sabres.
this every time we talk about Toronto, and I'm doing it again. I think Nylander is priority number one there, and it's the thing that they're trying to do.
You have a spidey sense on that one?
It's always tingling. I am always... No, I'm not. Don't say that. It's always tingling.
We're talking about Nylander, that situation, right? Oh, okay.
It's always tingling.
Just want to make sure.
One other thing I wanted to mention about Carolina.
Yeah.
I'd heard that some teams had talked to them about bunting.
You mentioned that on Saturday, yeah.
I got to tell you, one of the teams I wondered about was, there's a GM out there who knows them pretty well.
Pittsburgh. All right, well, we'll see where that one goes. Washington Capitals.
Good return for him though
Scored a big
in
goal.
Toronto. Big goal.
Scored a
Big
huge goal. Washington Capitals have now lost 4 straight games.
Yeah.
The game against Nashville, the disallowed goal, the Alexander Ovechkin goal, the Nick Dowd in front of Yaroslav Askarov, which I don't think you liked so much.
Kelly Rudy, God bless his heart. He's the nicest man alive. A goalie could commit grand larceny, rob a bank in broad daylight, and he would say, there's something there that doesn't convince me the goalie is actually guilty. I didn't like that call. I judge everything by if a goal gets taken off in the playoffs, how am I going to feel about that? Yeah. And I would hate if that goal got taken away in the playoffs. Number one, Dowd is not in the crease.
You okay with that being a Stanley Cup championship goal?
Yes. Yes, I am. Dowd is not in the crease.
You don't have to be in the crease.
I know you don't have to be in the crease, but as you have said many times, the crease often tells the tale.
it's a big tell.
Yeah.
That's where put it this way, the crease is where you don't presume innocence, you assume guilt.
Yes.
That's how I see the crease.
Yes.
And you have to prove that you're innocent. You don't have to convince someone you're guilty. You have to convince people that you're innocent when you're in the crease. That liability is sky high.
Here is my scientific method of determining if a goal
Good luck.
is good or not. Am I okay if the Stanley Cup is decided on that goal? And the answer is yes, I am. And the reason is because I don't think that's enough to overturn a goal. I just don't.
You saw Nick Dowd's right skate and Askarov's stick get pulled to the side.
Yeah, but again, Askarov is outside the crease.
No, listen. I would make the argument.
Oh, sorry. Dowd is outside the crease.
He is. I would make the argument that that's part of incidental contact, and I don't mind a little bit of bumping with goaltenders.
I'm good with that.
But again, I'll come down to how strict do you want to read the letter of the law? His skate gets tied up, and
Are you okay with that goal deciding the Stanley Cup? I am.
I think push to shove, yes, but I'm not as firm on it.
Okay,
as you are.
because I don't like the slope where that takes us. Like that goal being disallowed, and all of a sudden we've got a Jack Edwards freak out on Sunday.
Oh, in the Detroit
when
game.
a Detroit goal gets scored. And Jack is a frequent listener to this pod.
That when he declared open war on goaltenders, that was awesome.
He's not entitled to make contact with the goaltender, even if he's out of the paint.
So it's open season on goalies if they leave the blue paint. Wow.
I think Jack Edwards wanted everyone to know, I've been off for a couple of days. I'm back.
I'm back, baby.
I'm back. I'm back.
That was awesome.
That one to me was a bit more cut and to me that one was more cut and dried. Swayman was outside the crease, but I understood it.
Yeah.
Like if you watch that game, in Washington the night before, you could sit there and you could say, well, wait a second. Those don't look very different to me.
Yeah.
That's what I don't like. Even though I saw the Swayman thing a lot more clearly than the Askarov thing, I think both of them should have had the same result.
Here's what I'll come to on the argument about Askarov and Dowd. I wonder if it comes down to who had that position first, whether it was in the crease or outside the crease. And this was Dowd is outside the crease. Who had that position first? Is that what maybe it comes
Maybe. I go back to the more goals we have that look like that getting taken away, I think it's just bad. Now, the other thing, too, that was interesting was someone said to me that if you look at the clock, it counts down to under a minute, which means it can be a review.
Yes.
But when does the puck enter? It was interesting. Like, they felt that that should have been Nashville's challenge, not the NHL's challenge. Because the puck actually enters the net with a little over a second left. A little over a minute left, excuse me.
A little bit more on Winnipeg and Minnesota. I've been going back and forth with people on this ever since the Winnipeg Jets moved from Atlanta back to Manitoba. And that is, I'm really waiting, and every now and then there's a little mini eruption. I'm still waiting for the Winnipeg-Minnesota rivalry. We always talk about either lost rivalries, Boston, New York, Detroit, Montreal, or new rivalries, Anaheim and Arizona coming to mind. We saw Elliotte, what hopefully will be the beginning of a lovely, nasty rivalry between the Winnipeg Jets and the Minnesota Wild. Province to state.
Nasty games.
How you like Lowry and Maroon? Going for it. Let's go.
Right off the face-off.
Let's go.
Middleton and Dillon yesterday or Saturday. The injuries, Gustafsson and Kaprizov. Kaprizov might never play another game in Winnipeg. That should have been a penalty, but it's not. Like, people are like, he should be suspended. That's not a suspension, but it is a penalty. That was a heck of a reverse hit by Kaprizov too. I mean, Hellebuck is in particular, and Brossoit too. They're making Winnipeg play 9 feet tall.
Yep.
Like that team feels really, really good. And you know what someone was saying to me today is that, you know, Minnesota's a really physical team. Their whole identity is punish you, right?
Yeah.
If you can punish the Minnesota Wild, people notice that.
Mm-hmm.
People recognize it. Minnesota doesn't get thrown around too much, if at all. And there's going to be players who watch that and say, the Jets, they stood up to them, eh? They pushed them around a little bit, eh?
So when you look at Coach of the Year, a lot of talk about Rick Tocchet.
Yeah.
A lot of talk about John Tortorella.
Yeah.
A lot of talk about Peter Laviolette.
Yeah.
And Jim Montgomery.
Yeah.
Rick Bowness.
Can you do like a Bonus / Arneal combination?
Well, he did handle the team for a while, yes.
Yeah. Still got half the season to go here, buddy.
I'm just saying, I know, but you know me, I like to hand out the awards every week.
Yes, I know.
The winner of the winner of the Hart Trophy this week and the winner of the Vezina Trophy next week.
I know you do.
You know how I obsess about these things, Elliotte. Quick couple of things on the World Juniors, and I know you wanted to talk about the Geekie hit and the Geekie ejection.
Yeah.
Is that just a matter? Because I looked at that one and I said, okay, I've watched enough international hockey to understand where they're going here. One, Geekie's big, and the guy that he hit isn't as big as him, and he hit him hard. Mm-hmm. And this isn't like, I can still remember when like Dion Phaneuf caught, Radoslav Olesh, and we all looked at that and went like, oh, okay, well that's fine. Well, he got punted for it. Like
I remember that one. Yes,
we're used to seeing players get ejected for hitting too hard.
Yep.
So it didn't come as any surprise to me. I know that maybe newer fans that don't watch a lot of international hockey might look at that and go, what? It's a hit. It's not his fault that he's bigger, and it's not his fault that it was made a great hit, open ice. How did you see it?
First of all, it was a huge, massive hit.
11 seconds in.
11 seconds in. I mean, like, I don't think that should be a penalty. But I understand that, look, if I was playing for Team Canada in an international tournament under IIHF rules, you do have to understand that can happen to you.
Yeah. You have to be ready for that. Like I'm sure all those kids are told, this is not like hitting in the Western Hockey League here.
So that's my reaction is in North America, that's never a call or rarely a call or a reviewed call that they overturn. In the international events, that's going to be a penalty every time. It's my unpopular opinion. People talk about, and one thing I do agree with is we have less of a stomach for injuries than we ever did. We like a tough game until someone gets hurt, and then none of us like to see it.
Elliotte, you can't have both.
I know. I'm just saying that.
You can't have both.
Like, two of the most popular sports in the world right now, well, one of them in North, what's the king in North America? The NFL.
Yeah.
Which they've taken a lot of big hits out of, but it's still a dangerous, violent game.
Yes.
One of the most popular sports in the world right now, UFC.
Yeah.
Hugely popular. I think people are willing to accept or like violence more than they are willing to let on. I think a lot of people are like that until somebody gets injured.
But again, that's being hypocritical.
It is.
I want this incredibly violent and safe.
I think a lot of people are like that, though.
I always say the same thing. You know what? If you said, Jeff, starting right now, you can only park your car when you're driving 50 miles an hour. Eventually I might learn how to park my car driving 50 miles an hour, but I'm going to smash a lot of cars along the way. You cannot have it dangerous and safe at the same time.
Thank God I don't live anywhere near you.
A couple of other things from the World Juniors. Just because I get these notes, and I'm sure you do as well. What have you heard about some of these players coming off the World Juniors? Because that's when trade
deadline,
start to pick up. And so just reading tea leaves, It very much sounds like, we just mentioned Conor Geekie from Wenatchee. It looks like everything is pointing towards him ending up in Swift Currents. Geekie is, of course, a Arizona Coyotes first-round draft pick. Matthew Savoy is a Buffalo Sabres first-round draft pick, also plays at Wenatchee. Looks like he's off to the Moose Jaw Warriors. There's some, I can't really get a handle on either if where Nate Danielson could be headed. He's a Detroit Red Wings first-round pick playing for Team Canada. A couple of people have told me watch for U.S.-based teams, maybe the Portland Winterhawks. We'll see what happens there. In the Ontario Hockey League, I think all eyes are on Owen Beck, the Montreal Canadiens second-rounder. He plays for Peterborough, and it very much sounds like if he is on the move, that the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds may be the clubhouse leader and the odds-on favorites to land him. An interesting trade on Sunday, the Saskatoon Blades picking up Alexander Suzdalev from the Regina Pats, or his rights from the Regina Pats. He's a third-round pick of the Washington Capitals, played with Connor Bedard last year with the Pats. Really highly skilled player. The Washington Capitals, Elliotte, had placed him on a pro team in Sweden, but they agreed to release him provided he went to a contender or a top team, and the Blades are the top team in the Western Hockey League. So he goes to Saskatoon. He'll be available January 5th for that team that earlier on this season made the deal for Fraser Minton, second-round draft pick for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So that's what it sounds like, first blush, from some of the big names around the CHL after the World Juniors.
Nice work.
There we go. Elliotte, quick note, Steven Stamkos, who we recently saw have should we call it a fight, with Aaron Ekblad last week in that Tampa, Florida game.
That was a mean game. Great rivalry.
Yeah, man.
Most games played in Lightning history.
Awesome.
Steven Stamkos. Never wanted to leave. Still doesn't want to leave. We'll see how this all plays out.
Spidey sense?
I don't know. Let's celebrate the great moment for a change. Again, the thing about Stamkos is, go back a decade, and didn't we all think he was cursed?
Oh yeah, I still remember that like it was yesterday. Him sliding into the net in that game against Boston. Oh man! And what did we all say? Is that going to be the end of what could be a great career?
And all of the injuries, the blood clot,
Yeah.
and he's built a Hall of Fame career.
Okay, we'll hit a break. We'll come back with the Montana's Thought Line and then the collage. Our interviews here from the Winter Classic in Seattle. You'll hear from Ron Francis. You'll hear from Kelly McCrimmon. You will hear from Jack Eichel. And you'll hear from Bruce Cassidy. All still to come on today's podcast. Listen to the 32 Thoughts podcast ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime. Welcome back to the podcast. You know who made my day today, Elliotte?
Who dat?
Dan Duva, play-by-play voice, Vegas Golden Knights. I'll explain why in a second. Welcome to the Montana's Thought Line, presented by Montana's Barbecue and Bar, Canada's home for barbecue.
Try the ribs.
That's why.
Oh, yeah, he said that to us, right?
At the lobby of the hotel,
That's
all of a
right.
sudden, someone from the back, try the ribs. Hey, thanks, Dan. That was great. That made my day. Anyway, 32 Thoughts at sportsnet.ca is the email address, 1-833-311-3232. Encore une fois, again, 32 Thoughts at sportsnet.ca, 1-833-311-3232. Brian submits this one. Last episode, you guys said it was legal to carry the puck on your stick. Would the NHL allow players to use that tactic in a shootout? I can imagine Connor Bedard at center ice, picking up the puck on his stick blade, skating in on the opposition net, and whipping the puck past the goalie lacrosse style. Would this be allowed? As a further thought, maybe some players would think of using special sticky tape on their stick blades for the shootout to facilitate picking up the puck and keeping it on the stick. By the way, that's called friction tape, two-sided tape, also referred to as Gordie Howe tape, because Gordie used to use the two-sided tape. I've tried it before, and anyone who else has tried two-sided tape, it's great. It sticks to your stick, but by the time the third period rolls along, your stick gets heavy
Oh,
because
yeah.
it absorbs water. Anyhow, would the NHL allow that, Elliotte?
I actually think that the NHL would allow anything in overtime that isn't, or anything in a shootout that isn't felony murder.
Of course.
Do you know that?
They would
Do you know of
allow that.
anything
They'd
that
allow
says
that.
you can't do that?
No, you're allowed.
Yeah.
You can do that. Like you could pick there's only one thing that I have a question about, because you could scoop the puck up lacrosse style and
Yeah.
skate with it.
Yeah.
That's no problem. Here's my question. If someone slashes your stick, because that's the only way to get it off your blade, unless you're going to body check the person, which I suppose you could and probably should do. If you slash the player to get the puck off their stick, is that a minor penalty?
I don't know. I don't spend any time
Referee
thinking of this
Friedman.
stuff. Yes. Look, the reason I would think it would be legal in the shootout is because technically you're not supposed to take the puck backwards in the shootouts.
Correct.
But once people started doing spinoramas, people argued, well, technically that puck's going backwards.
Yeah.
The NHL was like, go away, fun police. We're going to count this. So I just think anything would be allowed to happen.
Yes. Thank you very much for that question. Here's one. I like this. Mike in Calgary. Hey, Jeff, Elliotte, and Dom. My wife actually asked me this question the other night, and I thought it was a great question. When a player gets traded, let's use Zadorov to Vancouver.
Okay.
What is keeping Nikita from telling the Vancouver coaching staff everything that the Calgary coaching staff is working on? Do players have an NDA, or are they free to say whatever they like? Love the pod. I listen religiously. I like that. Do players have to sign NDAs?
Can you imagine? Nikita, before we give you this plane ticket to Vancouver, you have to sign this NDA. No, they don't. There's nothing that can prevent them from doing that. And I would assume they do. It's not like football, where football, people like Bill Belichick were notorious for signing somebody who he's not the only one, signing somebody who was on the practice squad of a team they're about to play, and they could talk about all their stuff.
That's just good strategy.
Good strategy.
That's just Greg's good strategy.
And they hack into each other's apps, as the college football coaches are now complaining about.
And Elliotte, let's finish up with this one, because we have all these interviews to get here in the third part of the podcast. Austin from Churchill. Hey guys, great job with the pod. What are your thoughts on adding new awards to the NHL?
Which ones?
Has there been any talk of adding a comeback player or most improved player of the year awards like they give out in the NFL and NBA? I think it would be an interesting addition and a great feel-good story. Brock Besser is having an incredible season after and going through hell, deserves to win something. What do you think? Cheers, and go Jets go. From Austin.
We had this conversation about a comeback player of the year on the pod, and you know what someone said to me?
It's Masterton?
We already have that. It's called the Masterton Trophy.
Perseverance, dedication. I don't know. It's the same as a comeback.
I don't disagree. When I think of how that our award tends to get voted on, I don't disagree with that point.
Okay.
Most improved player. I've asked about that. There doesn't seem to be a lot of interest in that.
What are awards? Marketing.
They're things that you get for doing well.
Right. It's marketing. It's part of the marketing.
Although
division
in the
of
Nurse
of any sports
family,
league.
there are no participation
love that.
trophies.
We got a lot of comments on that Sarah Nurse interview. She was great.
Yeah, she was really good.
But I mean, awards are marketing.
Yeah.
Marketing for your sport and marketing for your stars. And I think as long as it's not absolutely ridiculous, I don't mind. Like, I don't mind fragmenting defenseman trophies at all. Offensive, defensive. I'm good with that.
Can I tell you what I heard on the weekend?
No, I think I'll just end the segment there.
Okay. Someone told me that last year, some of the players disagreed with some of the awards voting more than they ever have.
Like the winners, or just who got votes or who didn't get votes?
I think winners.
Really?
Yes.
Because they looked at my ballot and said, well, Merrick's got it perfect. How come he's not represented properly?
I heard one of the ones, they thought that the Norris was too lopsided.
Really?
Yes.
What would they have liked to have seen? I mean, Carlson kind of had a season for the ages.
He did, but it was interesting because I think players were kind of like, Look, I voted for Karlsson, 100 points. I was like, you got to vote for him. I just heard the players didn't really agree with that. And the reason I'm bringing it up now is that I heard it at the time, and I kind of forgot about it.
Yeah.
And it was brought back onto my radar last weekend. That they thought it was too lopsided.
But did they still think that he should have won? But just not by that margin.
I didn't get a great answer.
Are we like
on
splitting
that one.
hairs on this
because I didn't get a great answer because one of the things that you always do is if you only speak to like 3 or 4, sometimes you're guilty of assuming that 3 or 4 speaks for
the group.
700.
Yeah.
But I do think I definitely got the sense that they felt it should have been closer.
That Quinn Hughes should have had more?
Didn't say who.
Miro Heiskanen.
Just said, didn't say who, just said
Did
too
you talk to
lopsided.
Quinn Hughes and Miro Heiskanen about this, by the way? Were those 2 of the players that you talked to?
The 4 players I talked to were Quinn Hughes, Miro Heiskanen,
Charlie McAvoy.
Alex Pietrangelo, and Charlie McAvoy.
Okay. That's Montana's Thought Line. Montana's Barbecue and Bar, Canada's home for barbecue. We're back with a collage of interviews from the Winter Classic in Seattle. Keep it here. Welcome back to the podcast. Earlier on Sunday, Elliotte and I sat down with some members of both teams you'll see at the Winter Classic, the Seattle Kraken and the Vegas Golden Knights. You will hear from Bruce Cassidy in this collage of interviews, head coach of the Vegas Golden Knights. You'll hear from Vegas's general manager, Kelly McCrimmon. You'll hear from their star center, Jack Eichel. But kicking it all off, the general manager of the host, Seattle Kraken, here's Ron Francis. Elliotte was traveling when this one was recorded. So finally, it's just me and a guest without Elliotte wrecking it. Here's Ron Francis. First of all, Ron, this looks fantastic behind us here. I am curious, from your position as general manager, what's been the most challenging thing about putting this event together?
Actually, you know what? The NHL does a great job. They've done this for a long time, so they organize that. The Mariners have been fantastic to work with in helping get everything set up. You know, probably the biggest thing is just in hosting, you've got everybody coming into town. So, you know, we're running somewhere close to about 300 family and friends that are in town for the event. So managing that, making sure we get as many people as we can on the ice to skate, as many people here to watch it, feeding them tonight on New Year's Eve and getting them into the building tomorrow has probably been the biggest challenge, but it's a fun problem to have.
You know, it's always fun too to see the local team put their flair and put their spice on the event as well. What were some of the more goofy ideas maybe that you heard or were pitched that got rejected? I'm always curious about that. Around the table, okay, someone, no bad ideas, just throw them all out. You have a couple that you looked at and went, I don't know, we can do this.
Yeah, I probably don't have anything for you. I really wasn't in a lot of that. We have the business side that kind of, and the marketing side that more or less took on that from our standpoint. I know they did a really good job. You know, our jersey's been well received. They've done a lot of advertising in the city. You know, I think the city of Seattle is excited to have this event here and show our city off. I think our fans are really excited to be a part of it, and I know our players are just itching to get out there and play. I mean, as a kid growing up, that's what you dream of, right? A lot of times we skate on the outdoor rinks, and now to have this chance to play is fantastic for our guys.
It's become one of those items for players now. There's like, okay, I want to win the Stanley Cup, I play my first game, I want to score 50 goals, all-star, all that. This has become an item for NHLers now, right?
No, it has. I mean, our guys have been really excited ever since they heard it was happening. You know, and you know, they put a lot of time in now. Part of it is what are they going to wear? What are their outfits going to be as they come off the bus tomorrow? So there's a lot of sort of effort into that, and then a lot of discussions with the players as to how we want to make it work and making sure that we take care of their families during this event too. So really exciting. Our organization's thrilled that we're getting to host this, and thanks to the NHL for giving us that opportunity, because we really appreciate it.
I mean, listen, you're a legendary player yourself. Is there a part of you that says, you know what, maybe I'd like to have played in one of these?
You know what, the closest I came was the Penguins invited me to go back to playing the alumni game there. So I did sort of get to, it wasn't the real deal, but unfortunately I was out of the game and didn't get the chance when it came along. But this is just a special thing that the league does, and we're thrilled that we have it here in Seattle.
What are the players saying to you about it? I mean, you mentioned already they're thrilled about it, but I mean, is this one of those like, hey, this makes it worth it here?
Yeah, no, they're all excited. I mean, you see them around the locker room. And my concern as a GM is there's so much planning for this, and you have to have these discussions, and you have to get them, their bracelets and their credentials and everything else for them and their families. Is that going to take away from their prep leading up to this? But our guys have done a real good job focusing on, the NHL schedule and the games they're sort of laying in front of us, but also you can tell in the back of their minds they're really excited to be here. Just spent some time walking through the locker room down there, and they all got smiles on their face, and it's, they're like little kids again, which is great to see.
That's awesome. Let me ask about your team. Really quickly, you've put together an impressive prospect pool. How many of the World Juniors right now?
7 now with Mr. Furcus flying over, and actually Shane Wright probably would have been there if we let him go. So, yeah, we've got some good young pieces. Our scouting staff has done a real nice job in that area for sure.
So how do you, expectations now after last year's season and making it to the playoffs and knocking off the Stanley Cup champions, expectations certainly go up. How hard is it to say, you know what, these players are hands off, or are they hands off? Like, do you always have an eye to the future, but knowing that, listen, we need to build on what we did last year?
Yeah, no, I think right from day one our approach was a little bit different. We knew going into the expansion draft we weren't going to get the same kind of deals that Vegas got. I mean, the GMs had 4 years to prepare. They had time to go back and look at what they did and what they would do differently. Vegas had nobody sitting on the outside that could affect their expansion draft. Vegas made 2 trades. Nothing that they did wrong. Those were the rules, but they were allowed to make 2 trades, which sort of affected some of the rosters and the teams we picked. So going into it, we knew that really wasn't going to be an option for us. So part of the plan was to get the best possible team we could on the ice and be competitive each and every night, but also try and build from the ground up so that when we, when those kids start to roll into our system, that we feel that we're a competitive team, not only for the short term, but for year after year and long term. So it's been a bit of a balancing act. We certainly think we've got a lot of good hockey players in our lineup, a lot of character individuals. That's why I think we were able to have the success we had last year, but we're also excited about what we have coming. So it determines, I guess, where we are at the time, whether we do certain things, but there are certain guys that absolutely would not be in play based on our strategy to build for the long term.
How are the phone calls, man, from other general managers?
Yeah, there's always calls. I always say, as a player, you're always scared to death you're going to get traded. As a GM, you make 100, 150 calls. You're lucky if you get one thing done. So, there's a lot of, there's always conversations and stuff. But, it's a little interesting, too, with the cap situation with a lot of teams, too. There's not a lot. It's not real easy to do things in this sort of environment right now.
You mentioned Shane Wright a couple of seconds ago. One thing that we do know about you is you have a plan. You have a plan for your team. You have a plan for individual players as well. What's the plan for Shane Wright?
Kind of doing what we're doing, right? We last year we got him some NHL games. We got him back to the World Juniors. He was able to be captain on the team. They won a gold medal. Went back to juniors. He got back into Coachella. They went all the way to the Calder Cup finals. They were in an overtime Game 7 away from winning the Calder Cup. So a lot of experience there. Came into our camp. We reassigned him to Coachella again, and he's having a decent year down there. Much better overall game from where he was a year ago, and that's our plan. We'll continue to work with him, continue to develop him, and at some point he's going to get the opportunity to come up and play here. But we want to make sure we're doing it right for Shane and the organization in the long term.
Is he one of those players that you look at and you say, we could call him up here for a 4th line spot, but that's not where Shane Wright's going to be? Like, does it matter what the spot is, or do you say it's Shane Wright if it's not a top 6 spot?
Well, we did that. We had some injuries earlier, and we called him and Winterton up, and they played 3 games, and all 3 were like 10 minutes or less. I don't like that as a GM because, if he's coming up, I want to see him playing. If I have him in Coachella, he can play 15-plus minutes a night. He can play in all situations. I'd like him when he comes up here to have that opportunity to play more minutes and in more important roles where he can show what he can do, power play being one of them for sure.
This is kind of, at least it feels this way now, in that this season in the NHL has been the year of the backup goaltender. A number of teams with 3 goaltenders. I know everyone was terrified about Tampa and waivers and trying to get a guy down, etc. How do you look at the goalie situation in the NHL right now, and do you think this is here to stay?
Well, I think there may have to be some discussions, when we get into the off season, how we manage that a little bit. But I think we've been no different. We went through this last year. We lost the goaltender for about 11 games. Again this year we lost Grubauer. We've got DeCord and Drieger playing for us. So they've done a real good job in the interim. But you're going to always deal with injuries, and we're no different. Like, we haven't played one game this year with the roster we thought we were going to start the season with. But it's such a critical position, the goaltending position, right? So if you have your goaltender healthy and able to play, it gives you a huge advantage. And you're seeing it now, not only with us, but a lot of teams throughout the league, that's such a critical position. I find it interesting that I don't think the NFL would let, if the quarterback went down, some guy come out of the stands and dress and be the quarterback or starting pitcher. That's what we do right now. So is there something there that we need to discuss and kind of look at that a little bit differently, whether it's carrying a third guy or what have you? But certainly I think it's an interesting point for all the GMs to have discussions on.
I'm going to assume that's come up before at general manager meetings, at least
I
whether formally or informally.
Yeah, I think there's been some, sort of brief discussion on it, but you're seeing more and more of it, and it's becoming more and more of an issue. So, does that put it more on the forefront moving forward? We'll have to wait and see, but I would think it becomes more of a discussion point.
Not a fan of the e-bugs?
I think it's great, but, I think, the points are so valuable. It's a tough situation to take somebody that, maybe by day is an accountant or a singer or something, and now you're throwing them into a National Hockey League game, at a critical point.
Matt Beniers, remarkable season last year, Calder Trophy. What are the conversations that you have with him, or Dave Haxtell has with him, as he finds out that the second year in the NHL is more challenging than the first?
Yeah, no, it's just sort of, I think he went the first 13 games without a goal, all right? So you have a discussion with him and just make sure mentally that he's okay. One thing about Matty, he's not gonna change who he is. He continues to work hard in practice, continues to work hard in the game. So that's a positive. Just trying to lean maybe a little bit of your own experience. I know in my position, I played 23 years. It wasn't all 23 seasons that all went perfectly and never had a bad game or never had a bad stretch. And I always felt when you got into those stretches, the thing was to try and go back to the things that you do well, right? What is it that makes your game successful? And if you go back to those little things, it helps you kind of find your way. And I was pretty confident that he wasn't going to go 82 games without a goal. And, try and lighten the mood a little bit with him and get him to relax a bit. But, he's such a big part of our organization now and moving forward. We just want to make sure that he's doing all right. But it is a good league.
And it's hard to score goals in the NHL, as you well know. Do you think? I mean, this would make sense. Do you think he puts too much pressure on himself? I mean, he takes a lot of pride in knowing what he does, and he's an elite level player. Do you think that there's a squeezing it too much sometimes with Beniers?
I think if you get to this level as an NHL player, you put a lot of pressure on yourself in any situation. And Matty's no different in that regard, right? He wants to help the team win. He wants to score goals. He wants to make good plays. Those are things he wants to do. He's a leader within our locker room. So when things aren't going well, it's harder to be the leader, and that's part of what the challenge has been to Matty. Continue doing the things you do as a leader and continue to work on your game. But we believe he's going to be fine in the long run.
Last one for you. So it is the day before the Winter Classic. What does Ron Francis do?
Try and enjoy it as much as I can with my family and my team. I've got a lot of people in. All my kids are in town, and my mom and brother, everybody's here. So we're going to enjoy the day today. We got the family skate. We're going to let all our players and their families go out, and then we got all our staff and them coming out to skate. And then we're doing a great big dinner tonight for about 300 people, all our family and players, everybody in town, just because it's New Year's Eve, and so sort of spend some time with them, and then sort of sit back and hopefully enjoy the game tomorrow as well.
That's fantastic. Best of luck. Thanks so much for doing this.
My pleasure. Thanks, Jeff.
Jack, thanks so much for joining us. So every hockey player has like a number of boxes they want to check for their career. Drafted, first contract, first game, first goal, Stanley Cup, all these types of things, awards, All-Star. Where does Winter Classic fit in that collection of boxes for you?
Well, I think when they started this tradition, the first one was when? The first real Winter Classic that they promoted and did was
Buffalo,
and Pittsburgh,
The
right?
snow globe. The snow
Since
globe
this
game.
does air in Canada, we don't want the Canadian hordes
No,
coming
those
after
were
you.
no, of course not. But those games were majority like they were known as the Heritage Classics,
Yes, that's
right?
correct, yes.
So the first Winter Classic was that one in Buffalo, and what year was that? What year would that have been? 2008?
Yes.
Around then. So I
Around
would have
then,
been,
yeah.
I mean, I was a young kid, and I think watching that, and obviously Crosby had just come into the league, and I think every young hockey player was just a huge fan of him. So I think that tradition just continued to build each year, and you just dream about playing in one. I have memories of being out on a pond in Winter Classic jerseys, whether it be the light blue Pens jersey that they wore in that Winter Classic or Bruins Winter Classic uniforms. So you always dream about doing it. Fortunately, I was lucky enough to play at Citi Field in New York against the Rangers when I was with Buffalo. And it was a dream come true, and now to be able to do it again, I feel very fortunate. It's an incredible experience. I think for us as players, it's also an incredible experience for your families and the people that you have here with you.
I remember interviewing Crosby after that one in Buffalo when he scored in the shootout. And, I said, it must be the greatest feeling in the world. You're in the middle of this huge stadium. In that case, because they're on the road, everybody's booing him. And he goes out there in front of all those people and he scores the winner. And he said it was like Gladiator. He felt like he was in Gladiator. And you get to do a lot of incredible things as an athlete. I would imagine being in that position is as up there as it gets.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of the historic Winter Classic moments. I know if I think back, obviously the Bruins overtime game against Philadelphia at Fenway Park was pretty cool. You think about like Henrik Lundqvist's save on Daniel Briere. Some of the other shootout, the game at the Big House was obviously pretty cool. Went to a shootout as well between Detroit and Toronto. That was, I was living in Ann Arbor during that game when I was at the National Development Program, but I wasn't in town. I was actually overseas in the World Juniors, so I didn't get to go to that one. But there's so many great memories around the Winter Classic and this game, and you just want to be on the right side of them.
Sorry, Jeff. I heard you skated with some of the kids this morning. Who's good?
Marshy's got 3. His kids, I've been on the ice with them before. His 3 boys are pretty good.
Are they like him?
I don't know if I compare him to him. I don't know. His oldest, James, is a good player. His middle one, William's, really good. And his youngest one, Henry, is a pretty good skater as well. I imagine they'll be really good players. And he's tough on them. Like, they're always on the ice. They're always working. He's pretty tough on him, but he takes a lot of pride in it. It's really cool to see. Be on the. Obviously, you grow up in your relationship with your dad when you're a young kid. It's one thing, and it's almost sometimes a love-hate relationship where they're pushing you and you don't quite understand it. As you get older, you're really thankful for it. Being able to be around, my teammates and their kids, it's a super cool experience. Remember when Max Pacioretty was still here, how into his kids' hockey he was, and getting to know Marshy and his wife and getting to know their kids and all they do for their kids' hockey. It's awesome to see. And, I hope they have, so much fun being out there today. It's such a cool experience for, not only them, but all the kids and all the families, wives, girlfriends, you name it. It's all part of this great experience that we get to have.
We always say the Winter Classic is a great event. It's a spectacular show, but the game isn't at NHL levels. Not everything is controlled. Things are different. How different is it? And do you even mind, considering it's a spectacle and it's a cool thing to be like? How different is the ice, for example?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely there's there's a lot of variables that go with it. Temperature, ice,
Glare.
the glare. You have that hollow feeling underneath you a little bit because there's obviously, when we play at a normal arena, it's concrete below us, below the ice. Whereas when, when you're on the ice here, I don't know what they use to put underneath on the ballpark, but I imagine it would be wood, right? To try and protect the field. Right. So there's some different variables. The seating's different. The fans aren't right on top of you. Mm-hmm. So there's, a little bit different eyesight, and
I was gonna say
dimensions feel a little bit better.
Sight lines off a little bit.
Sight lines are a little bit different. The dimensions feel a little different, whether they are or they aren't. There's some variables that go with it, and I think you just take them for what they are. We're very fortunate to be playing in this game, so and everyone's dealing with the same variables. So I think that's the best way to put it.
I bet you when you came into the NHL, you always said, "I'm going to play an outdoor game, and it's going to be Vegas against Seattle."
Yeah, that was my first thought. Yeah, exactly. Who would have thought, right? Who would have thought Vegas and Seattle a couple years ago would be playing in the Winter Classic when they first started this? So yeah, it's awesome. You have the two freshest franchises in the league, and every time we come here to Seattle to play, they have an incredible atmosphere. We feel like we have an incredible atmosphere at T-Mobile, and so it should be a really cool experience for both franchises.
Who do you guys hate the most? Is it the Kings, the Oilers, the Avalanche?
I don't know.
The Wild, the Sharks, the Stars.
Well, but the thing is, the Sharks rivalry was really hot before Jack.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, I was watching guys against the Kings the other night. That was a great game to watch. Yeah. But I was looking at that and saying, who do these guys hate the most?
Yeah.
Everybody hates you because you're the champions.
Right. I'm not sure. I don't know.
You're smiling.
I'm sure. Well, you know what? I'm sure different guys on our team would have different opinions on that. Who they specifically hate the most. So.
What's yours?
Who would I hate the most? I don't know, honestly. I'm a little newer here. It was my first playoff run, so these guys have a little more scar tissue from some of these series they've had.
Yeah, it's a good point though too, because it seems like you get every other team's best game. Elliotte and I talk about this on the pod all the time. Your games against Minnesota are awesome. Your games against LA are awesome. Games against Edmonton are awesome. Go right down the list. Dallas.
Colorado.
Colorado, another great. Maybe that's the most obvious
that
one.
exhibition game was like a regular season game.
I was going to say that was, that exhibition game. It sure felt like a regular season game at the end of the preseason. But that's good, it's a competitive game. It was physical. I mean, you want those type of games. The compete was high. The skill level was high. Both teams had a lot of their regular players in. I think you want those sort of games during the preseason to try and get yourself prepared. We had a similar game at the end of the preseason with LA, and it seems like all those every time we play them, Dallas, Colorado, it's always tight games. Yeah. LA, Edmonton.
Yeah.
I think you see both teams really get emotionally invested in those games.
Last one for me, Jack. The conversation around you this year in the media is, look at Jack Eichel's 200-foot game. Is this something you're doing differently, or are we just all lazy and we've only noticed this now?
You guys are just lazy. No. You know what? I give a ton of credit to our D. They definitely make us forwards look good. The system in which we play, I give a lot of credit to Bruce, the coaching staff. I think the system bodes well for our team, our centermen. For me personally, learning it, having the opportunity to get comfortable with it last year, and then try and make improvements, and then just trying to focus on it more, because I think it's an important part of the game, and I think there's ways that you're always trying to get better. And for me, there was a long time where everyone critiqued my, play in my own zone. And you don't want weaknesses. You always want to try and find things that you can get better at. And for me, playing in our own zone, helping our defensemen break the puck out, being responsible, building trust from the coach. I think that's all important, and just try to make more of a conscious effort. And I think you combine a lot of those things, and we get a pretty good team, and it allows me to try and be a part of that. We play a pretty tight defensive game for the most part, and I'm a benefactor of that at times, and I like to say I also can impact it, in a positive way.
This is great. Good luck tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kelly, thanks as always for making yourself available for this right before the Winter Classic. How long has this been on your agenda? Like, I'm curious, like, what do you have to do for the Winter Classic this year as GM of this team?
We had some preliminary discussions and decisions to make with respect to who's going to be coming, ticketing, those types of needs. Which, interestingly, I think our deadlines were if they weren't in the middle of the Stanley Cup Finals, they were right around that time when your mind is on anything else. But I think where we would have started to, where it came on our radar much more was when you get to the off season and you look at the upcoming schedule. You look at just the different experiences that your team is going to have, and the Winter Classic was, really perfect in terms of giving your players an opportunity to enjoy something with their families. It's an honor to be one of the teams asked to play. The venue is going to be tremendous. We can see that from our family skate this morning. So I think it was sort of more as we headed into the season.
Well, what do the players say to you about this? Is there a whole lot of, hey, Kelly, thanks?
Some of our players have done it, so I think they know what to expect. I'm assuming you guys were around when we had our family skate. I guess you were likely there with Seattle as well. And, that tells you everything for me that you need to know, right? It's, really gratifying and heartwarming to watch them interact with, their wives or children, parents, in-laws, and everything that goes with the family skate, and just the the buzz around the hotel, because our entourage is over 200 people for this game, whereas a regular road game we'd be 50 people. So that part of it is different as well. So yeah, I think the guys really look forward to it and really enjoy it.
It's good to hear you say that you embrace it and it's an honor to be selected, because I do think there are times people wrestle with, is this a good thing or do we really need this?
Well, sure. I think in the moment there's, people may think that. For us, it worked out really well. Our schedule has been really heavy in the first half of the year. Coming out of Christmas, we went 27th, 28th, and then we got a nice break. We don't play till the 1st, and then we don't play till the 4th. So we're not having to, sort of hurry to get here. We're staying overnight tomorrow night after the game, so we can have a get-together with the families and enjoy that, because New Year's Eve will be a quiet night for all of the players because of the game tomorrow. And then we still get home with time for a day off, a practice day, and then play that following day. So I really like that part of it. That was one of the things when you asked the question, what were things that we had to do in regards to the Winter Classic? Our scheduling in and around it probably was the most significant piece of where we were involved in terms of trying to make that that layout so the logistics were good, that people could enjoy it. So no, I don't look at it as a hardship in any way. I think that over 82 games, we're competitive people. Losing doesn't sit well with anyone. It won't sit well with whichever team that happens to be tomorrow. But if you just can look big picture a little bit, I think it gives your guys something to look forward to, as you get to sort of November and into the start of December. And then I think it'll be something that they remember for the rest of their lives.
We're getting into January now, and that's where we start to see the beginnings of some moves that end up culminating with the trade deadline. I know Matthias Ekholm was a real nice bit of business for Ken Holland last year, but Vegas bringing in Ivan Barbashev, bluntly, it helped you guys win a Stanley Cup.
It did.
I know you're not going to tell us the player or players you have
Who are you
in
trading
mind,
for?
but do you have, because I'm guessing you must have had Barbashev the back of your mind for some time before you pulled the trigger on that deal. Do you have in your mind right now an idea of who you're looking for?
Well, we rely on our pro staff a lot. I think it's really been critical to our organization from day one. When you look at the role that they've played, I think last year's Stanley Cup team had 11 players that we had traded for. So that speaks to a little bit of a different way of building a hockey team. We have to have a lot of trust in our pro staff under Von Karpen. They do great work. We meet regularly. We identify players of interest. We have players that we will adjust our coverage to make sure we're seeing more as we get into 2024, leading up to the trade deadline. Barbashev was an interesting one because he really was a guy that we identified early in the year. If he was going to be available at any point, we'd be really interested because it was a contract that you could afford. It was, I think, 2.25. And he was what we needed. He was different than the players that we had. It's why we made the decision to keep him, because he is different than the type of players that we had. And really, for me, it's not unlike some of Tampa. Julian's best moves were those Coleman moves, the Goodrow moves. Like, those are kind of the trades that sometimes end up really helping a team, and that's what that'd be similar to what Barbashev was for us. So to not answer your question further, we have our pro staff coming in, I believe, the second week of January, where we'll do a deep dive on every team, and I think we'll really tighten up what we think of our own team, where we think our own areas of concern might be, where we could strengthen our team. And we'll start to handicap what we think might be happening around the league and adjust our coverage from there.
Is there anything?
I think with the Barbashev, sorry, Ellie, to cut you off. I think with Barbashev, just going off of memory, I think we had 45 in-person viewings of Ivan Barbashev. So he's a player that we felt we knew pretty well when the time came.
I have a few follow-ups based on that, and one of them is a philosophical question. I have been hearing more and more, Kelly, that teams are cutting back on scouting, and there's a big question about what the future on scouting is. And there's definitely a feeling I've heard in a few places that you still have to amateur scout as hard as you ever did because video is not as reliable, but you can pro scout. I don't know if I want to call it cutting corners, but some people have said to me they think it's cutting corners. Pro scouting, you don't need to do it as much anymore. And I'm listening to talk about Barbashev here, and you saw him 45 times, or somebody did. I'm going to guess that you think that's not correct.
Yeah, that won't be how we do it. I think that maybe where your questioning comes from, or it ties into your question, is there's more and more things you can do in addition to in-person scouting to develop opinions on players. So the analytics is part of that for sure. Player tracking, I think, as teams understand better as time goes on, the ways that can be helpful. I think that there's going to be people that put a lot of importance in that. We'll do the work. I guess we've got the resources from our owner, Bill Foley. We've got tremendous people in place. That's I've talked to you guys about it before. I still think that's the best work we've done as an organization, is the people that we've hired, and I think it helps us best utilize their abilities if we've got them in arenas watching hockey players.
Mm-hmm. The other thing I just want to ask you, is there anything you look at your team and say, we're going to need this?
We've had a pretty good start to the year. We had a great start to the year. Then in November and December, we've had a stretch each month where we weren't as good as we wanted to be. I think that there's a lot of things that enter into this, not just with our team, but with all teams. 82 games is a long season. It depends on what your travel is, what your health is. We've had some health issues again this year, as we have had last year, for example. In the first half of the year, we had a tremendous health issue with our skaters. The second half of the year, we had a health issue with our goaltenders. So we've had a little bit of that. Sometimes it's when you play teams. I know when we went through Alberta, we lost in overtime to both teams, Calgary and Edmonton. And I said before we played Calgary, we were a couple of weeks late getting to Alberta because quite a few teams went through there and won both nights. That's right. So, there's so many good teams, and there's so many factors. You really have to take a broader look at your team. I think we have some comfort, Elliotte, in that. We've returned our entire team except for Riley Smith. So we know that team can get it done because it has got it done. And yet you're always looking to make yourself better. And we'll continue to know the available players and assess whether they would help us. And if we think that we can improve our team, we will.
Last one for me, Kelly. I know it's not one you're going to love, but Marchessault. Like, he's an original misfit. And really, one of my highlights from last year was what you guys did in Game 5, when you started with 5 of the 6 misfits. I thought that was a really great moment. Now, you've got to sign him. He's a little bit older. Just what's your process going through this? Because I know he's an important player in the history and the legacy of the Golden Knights.
Well, he is for sure, and obviously, he was a Conn Smythe Trophy winner,
Yep.
So that speaks to the importance that he had on our team and has on our team. And the one thing I've always loved about Jonathan Marchessault is he scores big goals. He has, just got that ability to, elevate his game when needed, and seize big moments is what I always have found his strength to be. We've got a number of players on expiring contracts. You can add, Will Carrier, Chandler Stevenson. Was another player. We just signed Ben Hutton, Michael Amadio's an expiring contract. So we just, as a course of business, we're not going to talk about where we're at with any player's contract or any specific situation. That goes on between the club and the player and his representatives.
Understood.
This has been great. Kelly, thanks so much for this.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
We really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. Anytime.
Bruce, first off, thanks so much for doing this. Always curious, a few months out of winning a Stanley Cup, because when it first happens, it's the euphoria and everything. But a few months out, how has things changed for you now that you can say Stanley Cup champion?
Well, it's a little easier to coach in terms of, if you have a bad stretch or a couple of bad games, there's trust in the group. Now, some of that's a lot of the same players are back. So it's a little easier to walk away from a game you don't like that much and say, okay, let's just take a deep breath and get it right, as opposed to be on edge a lot. Let's say, and want to fix it right away. We got to be at our best if we expect to win, because going through it last year, we weren't always at our best, and we did win. But we were at our best at the right time. So there's a little bit of a learning curve that. So you take that into I've taken that into this year at times. And so far, that's probably the biggest thing, takeaway.
That's exactly what Eichel said, actually. We asked if you had changed it all. And he kind of smiled and said, he smiled and he said, he trusts us more. He said the exact same thing. Like, he said, everybody goes through bad times. And because we're a lot of the same team, he knows he's going to be able to bring it out of us. It's amazing. He said the exact same thing you did.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, that's the way it probably should be, right? It's like anything in life. If somebody's accomplished something, you sort of have to trust they can get it right. Doesn't mean you're going to win again, but the process maybe to do it and how to do it. So, that's probably the biggest takeaway. Yet, there's been a couple times where we had to stop and say, listen, last year's over. Like, we got to stay in the moment too here now. And we are the defending champions, and people say that, but we would like to be the repeating champions, right? So let's get into that mindset. So there's been a few times we've had to tackle that issue as well.
I'm a big Pat Riley guy. I really like Pat Riley's work. And when he wrote about coaching the Lakers through all their Showtime, he talked about the cycle of a team, right? And after a team wins the championships, he had the chapter called The Disease of Me. That's where it becomes that everybody wants to get their reward and what do I get for winning the championship? Have you seen anything like that with this Vegas team?
No, I haven't. A couple of guys, I mean, it's a business cycle, right? So some guys like Aiden Hill got paid. I'm happy for him. He did a great job for us. He's been working at his craft now in the league. So there's going to be some of that rewards. But I think that's just, maybe where you are, a little bit of luck involved. Maybe if your contract year happens to come up when things are going well, that's part of the business. But as far as the individual maybe playing time, the disease of me and like I need more, or I should be playing more because we won. No, and I think a lot of it's because of the returning group, and we kind of slotted in the same. Now we've mixed some people around, but similar roles. Now, some young guys obviously could keep that growing, but most of the other guys know where they fit. We haven't asked less of them in terms of what they brought last year, and we're trying to keep it similar as long as we have success, and we did early, not so much lately. So I mean, if that's continues, then we'll have to change it up. But that part has been good with the group. They're a pretty respectful group to one another and understand that they need everybody, and I think that's what makes us tick a little bit.
So do you then deliberately go out of your way to not talk about last year with the group?
I haven't talked a lot about it. I talked about the start of the year. We talked about, do we want to be a one and done team? Like, if you look at the last 15 years, say there's take a decade and a half or whatever. You've got, Chicago had the run of 3, LA a couple. I put Boston in there because they were there 3 times. They won once. I was there once when they lost another time. Or do you want to be the team that was there once and never back again? So they were there once a long time ago, the original team. We have an opportunity to be that legacy team. The way our our core is set up and our contract structures, I think, will allow us to do that. So we've talked more about that at the start of the year. So how are we going to get there? It's a long journey, but that's what I think we're capable of. So is that a little bit last year, but it's more about going forward. I don't bring up last year a lot. Periodically things will come up. That playing Florida the other day, hey, we got to expect their best. We got their best. Yep. They were better than us, and there's a big reason why. So sometimes it does come up, but not every day. And we'll mix in the odd clip that might be relevant, but that's it.
Did you talk to anybody about repeating?
I talked to Jared Bednar, Coop, but it was general terms, just on how did you approach camp? How did you go about getting up and running? Less so about in-season issues. Those phone calls will probably start coming now, maybe, that you're halfway through.
Did Jared Bednar tell you the truth, or did he lie?
Well, Jared might be tougher to get out of now, but he's a great guy. So he was, how they wanted to structure their camp, how he thought it would be good for them. At the end of the day, we did the exact same thing we did last year, to be honest. We were just able to get through it more efficiently because there was less teaching and less video. So I thought it worked last year. Some new people in Henderson, so good for the organization to review everything. And I still think it's good for the players to go through it all. We just, like I said, because we'd been through it once and we knew each other better, the practices were just cleaner and crisper, so you get through them. So they're out of the building quicker, their days are shorter.
Yeah.
You're still getting the work done.
I was wondering if you spoke to anyone in any other sports or anything like that. Some people do that.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't.
Okay.
And I don't know a lot of different people. I could, Bill Belichick and I talk at times, but I did not. I went with the hockey guys.
Okay. I got to ask, sorry, Jeff, I got to say, your conversations with Bill Belichick, what are those like? I'm fascinated by him, and it looks like an incredible run might be coming to an end.
Yeah, I know they're not where they want to be right now,
Yeah.
so I don't know what'll happen in the future. We never discuss anything like that. What I like talking to Bill about is the process. He likes talking about the grind. He loves the grind and talking about, the details of coaching, how not to beat yourself. But like if you ever called him and said, well, what's it like to coach Tom Brady? Well, it's going to be click. Well, it's not click anymore. But, he doesn't want to get into, those specifics. Just like when people ask me about a certain player, it's like, that's between us, right? Like, and, it's just, that's his thing. But it's more about, preparing your team, what do you do if you're, it's not going well, and but it just a lot of general stuff. Like I just think he likes the sport. He likes the I was in Boston, obviously, then the Bruins, blue collar approach, because he knows the city well, and he loves that about sports in general. And hockey, there's a lot of that. It's about the team, right?
Yeah.
First, it's not always the best team on paper that wins, and so it's just conversations like that.
That's awesome.
I want to ask you something that we asked Jack Eichel right before he came in, and that is, your team seems to have consistently great games with the most different teams: Minnesota, Colorado, Los Angeles, Dallas,
Edmonton.
Like, we're trying to figure out the reason for this. One, you're an entertaining team with a lot of talent, but two, is it that everyone's gunning for you, and they always have, going back to probably year 2 after the novelty of the expansion team makes the final. Do you find that you're getting the best from just about every other team, and that's why, night in, night out, Vegas Golden Knights games are some of the most entertaining games in the league?
I think we got early on, like Dallas, we saw them. It was playoff intensity right away. Florida was the other day. I thought Tampa got to that.
Yeah.
I just think it's players that are highly competitive, and it keeps getting more and more competitive, and they want bragging rights. So do I find we're getting the team's best? Yes. Even the teams that aren't at that level that want to be, I mean, there's a little bit of, hey, this is where we've got to get to. This is what it looks like. So that to me is a certain sign of respect that I think the players should, that we've talked about. Hey, this is part of winning, right? Now when you're on top, everyone wants a piece of you. So, I mean, it's a compliment in its own way, but you got to be ready for it too, right? It's so I feel we've gotten that, and I think our guys. I've noticed this when we practice. If we just do some drills, they're okay, right? But when we get into the competitive 2-on-2 or 3-on-3 or small ice games, that's when we get the best out of our group, and that's against each other. So I've learned over the last year and a half that that's just who they are. The more that's at stake, the more that they want to win, and that's obviously a good thing. And that's probably why those games, get going.
Last question for me. We had Sarah Nurse on our show last week, and she's quite entertaining talking about this, this dream that she has where she forgets her skates and she can't find her skates.
I was thinking about that as he was saying.
I know, right?
Yeah,
it makes sense. I'm curious. Like, I understand that a player would have that type of nightmare. Really, where are my skates? And my team's already out there. I can't find my skates. What kind of nightmares do coaches have?
Geez, I don't know.
Is there one?
I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. I understand what she's saying though, right?
Yeah.
Because that you can't play without your skates. Like, it doesn't matter what else is going on. Like you need your skates. It's the simplest of things, right? So, no, I don't really. It's not like I sleep like a baby every night either.
Do you wake up crying every 2 hours?
But I don't wet my bed.
Last one for me. Favorite player you've coached?
Oh boy.
You've had some great ones.
Favorite player. Well, I've enjoyed coaching a lot of guys. I'll tell you who Torrey Krug was a guy I coached in Boston, and just the back and forth of running a power play and how he was a student of the game and how he tried to build his game from just an offensive player to have a legacy to be a two-way player. I enjoyed Torrey a lot because Torrey was stubborn but very receptive to coaching. Pasternak was a lot of fun just to watch his evolution because I had him as a 19-year-old to superstar. Right? And Jack is one now that I've really enjoyed because Jack, to me, is like an elite player that was looking for his spot to be elite, and he's found it here in Vegas. And I think our timing has been good for each other. We were going to be coming into this together in Vegas, and we're probably going to get some credit or blame either way, no matter how it worked out. And so I've enjoyed Jack and his evolution as a player. The other guy I enjoyed coaching a lot, I know is a little bit off, that is Noel Acciari. Noel was a guy that came up as a free agent in Providence, and I watched his growth, and to see him move around the league and have success. Like one of those guys that just a hard-nosed, great teammate that had to really work at it, that probably beat the odds at the end of the day. And to see him have success, as a guy who spent a lot of time in the minors, I have a really deep appreciation for those guys.
That makes a lot of sense. Good luck tomorrow. Thanks so much for taking time.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, hope you enjoyed that collage of interviews. Ron Francis, GM of the Seattle Kraken. Kelly McCrimmon, same for the Vegas Golden Knights. Jack Eichel of the Vegas Golden Knights, and Bruce Cassidy, the head coach of the, we should always throw in Stanley Cup when you've won it, Stanley Cup champion, Vegas Golden Knights. Thanks to both the Seattle Kraken and the Vegas Golden Knights for making their people available for our podcast. Thanks to our crew led by Jeremy McElhaney. Jason Wessel, Peter Planta, Camilo Torres, and Elijah Lawson. A big thank you from all of us here. So that's it. That's the pod. Thanks for making it this far. I hope you get a chance to watch the Winter Classic on Monday. Hope you enjoy it. And you can enjoy this podcast, a new one anyhow, coming up Friday morning. Happy New Year to all of you. Hope 2024 brings you health and happiness, not just to you, but your friends and loved ones as well. Have a great day.